Good day, gentlemen. I've been with my girlfriend for almost 8 years, and we've built an extremely peaceful, healthy, and connected relationship. But for the first couple years, I was really afraid of losing her. And thankfully, I eventually realized that my fear of losing her was the exact reason for why I was slowly losing her. It took me years to understand not only why my fear was driving her away, but also how to overcome this fear and actually build the deep relationship I truly wanted with her. So I thought, fuck it, I'll compress those years of failing, learning, and succeeding in the end into 6 no bullshit lessons for you, so you can overcome this fear as well and get one step closer to the exact relationship you've always wanted. We'll get right into this as always. Lesson number 1 that I had to learn was that you can either act from fear or you can act from love, and she will notice the difference. Look, growing up, I learned to be the good child because then my parents would treat me better. I often sacrificed what I wanted to avoid conflict. Essentially, I learned to act from fear to be the good child, not because I wanted to, not because out of love or because it felt good, but because it helped me avoid conflict. And as a child, that's completely reasonable, because what else are you gonna do? You're not mature enough yet as a child to handle emotional turmoil, but that changes as an adult, or at least it should, but it will never change if you don't actively do something about it. And this pattern only exists in dysfunctional relationships, and that's not what I wanted with my girlfriend. So I don't think you want it with your girlfriend either. So before I explain to you how to change this pattern, I first need to give you more context, because at that time, when I was so afraid of losing her, I was building my first business, and I was so driven at that time. I just wanted to work 80 hours a week and grow this business. But whenever she asked me to spend time with her, I did that. Instead of working, instead of doing what I wanted to do. It's not like I didn't want to spend time with her, but I wanted to work a lot. But whenever she asked me to spend time with her, I did. Why? Because I was afraid that if I don't spend that time with her, she would leave me or even cheat on me. Actually, it wasn't just a thought of she might leave me or might cheat on me. Deep down, I was 100% convinced that if I say no to her, she will leave me and she will cheat on me. And I was so anxiously attached to her at that time that even when I was working, I couldn't really focus on my work because I was constantly having these anxious thoughts, just overthinking about the relationship 24/7. There were many nights where I couldn't fall asleep for hours, even though I'm a very good sleeper usually, or where I would wake up multiple times during the night and not be able to fall back asleep because my head made up all these fake scenarios. And this also happened while she was lying in bed next to me. And the thought that really killed me at that time was that if I fall asleep, she will sneak out of the house and cheat on me. And keep in mind, there were 0 red flags from her. This was purely an irrational fear in my mind. So of course, I was acting from that fear, not from love. I wasn't spending time with her and being the good boyfriend because that's what I wanted, or because I wanted to just love her in the best way possible, but really because I was terrified of upsetting her. I was terrified of her leaving me. But she noticed this. Any human can tell when someone is being nice to them out of fear, but especially for most women, it will slowly but surely destroy their trust in you. I'll explain this more in a second, but you've probably already experienced this because it shows very quickly. Suddenly she's not as open and loving and happy around you anymore. She's kind of just bored and not excited to see you anymore. Or maybe she's even called you out on being a people pleaser, never making decisions, not being assertive, that kind of stuff. But why would she not like this? That gets us into lesson number 2 that I had to learn. Because, well, on the surface, it looks very positive, right? She got to spend a lot of time with me. I did everything for her. Why is that a negative thing? Well, there's 2 reasons why this is negative to her. Firstly, when I acted from fear, she didn't get much out of what I did for her. With spending time with her, for example, I'd be stressed. I would still be thinking about the work that I hadn't done yet instead of actually being present with her. And that, of course, made her not feel very seen and not feel very heard and not feel very loved. Essentially, if one partner loses, both partners lose. She can't feel connected to me when I'm hiding what I want out of a fear that it might push her away. And the second reason for why this is negative for her, and this is a much bigger issue, is that, well, when I spend time with her, even though I want to work, what am I really communicating to her? I'm essentially communicating that I don't trust and value myself. I'm essentially communicating that I trust and value her desire to spend time with me more than I trust and value my own desire to work. And how could she trust and value me if I don't even trust and value myself? And this applies to everything that you do for her out of a fear of losing her. But what's really important to understand here is that if she calls you out on this directly by calling you a people pleaser or telling you what she doesn't like, or indirectly by closing herself off more and more to you, that is not actually a bad thing. It doesn't mean that she doesn't love you anymore. The exact opposite, actually. She calls you out because she loves you, because she wants to be with you, and because she knows that you can be better. And it hurts her to see that you're not better. But there is a second side to why your fear of losing her is the reason for why you're losing her. And that leads me to lesson number 3. And I want to start this with a quote by the great Dr. David Hawkins. Not Stephen Hawking, not the physicist, but David Hawkins. He's not with us anymore, unfortunately, but during his life, he researched consciousness. He researched how the state that we act from affects our health, our success, our happiness, and of course, our relationships. And in one of his many great books, he writes, if our relationships with others are associated with our small self in the form of sacrifice, then we are setting ourselves up for later anger, because the other person is usually unaware of our sacrifice and is therefore unlikely to fulfill our expectations. What he's saying here is that it's not cruel to ask her for what you want. It's cruel to never ask, expect her to know, and then secretly resent her because you were too much of a coward to actually tell her what you want. And of course, if you don't tell her, she can't give it to you. You will resent her, consciously or unconsciously, whether you want to or not. And eventually, this resentment will come out in unhealthy ways. And that will only make the gap between you and her bigger. You've likely experienced this yourself, so I won't explain this further. But again, the biggest reason for why you're sacrificing things for the relationship for her is because you're afraid that if you don't sacrifice those things, you will lose her. So if you weren't afraid of losing her, you would be able to act like a mature man. You'd be able to say no to her in a loving way, in a kind way, not in a nice way. There's a difference between being nice and being kind. One is out of fear, one is from love, right? You'd be able to ask her for what you want and for what you need. And with that, you'd be able to actually be fully present with her when you spend time with her and fully focus on your work, your friendships, your hobbies, instead of constantly overthinking everything about your relationship. Essentially, you'd be able to give her the love that she truly deserves, not because you feel obligated to, but because it feels great to love her. And the only reason I know all of this is because I've made this exact transformation myself, and the impact it had on my relationship is unimaginable. So now that you understand the issues on a good level, let's get into how I actually made this transformation. And we'll start with lesson 4 that I had to learn, which is when you're afraid of losing her, and that's constantly on your mind, you will self-sabotage. I've seen this with myself, and I've seen this with so many of the men who come to me for mentorship. People call this a self-fulfilling prophecy, and I won't go too woo-woo, too spiritual here, right? Don't worry about that. But it's like the person who is constantly worried about getting into a car crash. And eventually they get into a car crash. And then some people might say, oh, it's because they manifested it. It's because the law of attraction. No, it's simply because that person who is constantly worried about getting into a car crash, they're nervous while they're driving. They're constantly looking over their shoulder, and then they miss a red light, and then they get into a car crash. Very simple. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. where it's like the beginner skier who is afraid of skiing into the trees, and then they look at the trees, and of course their eyes steer their body, and he skis right into the trees, right? My dad taught me this when I was younger. He was a ski instructor when he was younger, very good skier, right? He taught me at one of these mountains here behind me. But that's exactly that. You ski right into the trees because you look at the trees. If you had kept your vision on the snow, you would have stayed on the snow, right? And this is pure logic. And yet you still believe that your fear of losing her is in some way, shape, or form protecting you from losing her, right? This belief is wrong because of all the reasons I just mentioned. And that was a big wake-up moment for me when I realized that. Because the exact opposite is actually true. And so we need to change this belief because you're acting from this belief. And if you continue acting from this belief that your fear of losing her is in some way, shape, or form protecting you from losing her, which the exact opposite is true, right? Your fear of losing her is why you're losing her. If you don't change this, you'll end up similar to that person who is so scared of saying something stupid in a social situation. And so what do? They don't say anything. And then no one wants to spend time with them. No one wants anything to do with them because they're like this weird, insecure, shy person that doesn't say anything. Maybe they even seem arrogant because they just stand in the corner and not say anything, right? They sabotage, just like you. And of course, you didn't choose to believe this. You passively learned this belief when you were younger because that fear back then protected you, at least in certain ways, from being treated poorly by people, from being maybe even abandoned. And I did the exact same thing. I learned the exact same lesson. I told you about this earlier, right, with being the good child. Because when we're young, fear is one of the only, if not the only tool we have to ensure that people treat us not in a horrible way, basically. It doesn't ensure that they treat us great, but it ensures that they don't treat us horribly. But as you're hopefully understanding more and more, this is not a great tool if your goal is to build a fulfilling relationship as an adult now. Because the only thing that fear will do is it will make you hide yourself and it will make you sacrifice yourself. And that kills the connection with her. And this leads me to lesson number 5, which I learned from the master coach Joe Hudson, who coaches people like Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, right? The CEO of ChatGPT, or Chris Williamson, or the Twitter co-founder Ev Williams. Those are his clients. And Joe shared this lesson where he basically said, when you're not being yourself, then the world you're building is not for you. And the same applies to relationships. If you're hiding yourself, if you're sacrificing yourself, if you're not telling her what you want from her, then the relationship you're building is not for you. It's for the version of you that you're pretending to be. But when I was so afraid of losing her, it was extremely difficult to say what I want, to tell her no in a loving way, to not sacrifice my goals, my hobbies, my friendships, even though I already knew that those exact things are what would have helped me to actually build the relationship that I wanted, which funnily enough is the exact relationship she wanted as well. Because do you think that she wants a man by her side who loves her out of fear? Who does things for her out of fear? Do you think she wants that? Of course not. Brother, just like you, she wants a relationship where she can fully trust you, where you support each other in becoming who you want to become, where you value each other as equals, not despite your differences, but because of your differences. Brother, my girl and I, we wanted the exact same thing. And the biggest roadblock was my fear of losing her. I've even had multiple clients that came to me because their woman told them, I want the old you back. At the start of their relationship, these guys were themselves, and that's who their woman felt attracted to. But then the more serious the relationship got, the more afraid they became of losing her, and the more they changed themselves into who they thought their woman wants them to be. But brother, she wants you, not the you that you think lives in her head. When we're single, there is no sense of obligation to be someone we're not. So when you got into a relationship, you were probably acting very authentically, and that's who she fell in love with. An authentic man who knows what he wants, who doesn't hide himself, who doesn't people please others, and who fills his own cup, which then helps him fill her cup. Because right now, man, your cup is empty. And that's why your love that you give to her, that you try to give to her, feels like it's never enough for her. Because it isn't. Because your cup is empty. You have nothing left to give. Because you have never focused on actually filling your cup in this relationship. And that's not to say that she is emptying your cup. No, you're letting your cup be emptied. You're sacrificing yourself. You're hiding what you want. It's not her fault. And it's not your fault either. You, like we said earlier, you didn't decide to do that. I don't want to blame you here. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to make sure that you get out of this hole with her. It was the same for me, and because my girl fell in love with that version of me instead of my people pleaser self, my people pleaser version, that means that that's who she wants by her side. Even though she would have gotten to spend more time with me if I was still that people pleaser. But that's not who she wants. That's not who she fell in love with. And of course, that doesn't mean that I have to go back to who I was at the start of the relationship. I can't go back. The past is gone. But I could again start to live my life how I wanted to. And recently, one of my current clients, one of the men I'm currently mentoring, he said to me, word for word, he said, it seemed like if I don't put her before everything else, I will lose her. And then I put her before everything else and I lost her. That's exactly the kind of self-sabotage that I was talking about earlier. So let's go deeper into how you can overcome this in lesson 6. And by the way, I know I said in the intro that I have 6 lessons. I actually have 7 lessons today, so bear with me. This is not the last lesson yet. But of course there are women out there who are just bad women. Women who want to control you or manipulate you or stuff like that. But let's be honest, that's not the kind of woman you want in your life anyway. And there's this great quote by the author G.S. Youngblood where he says, most women are craving for their man to be in his own power as long as he is inclusive, collaborative, and not domineering. And it's very true. Like I said earlier, you and her have the exact same goal, and your fear of losing her is the biggest roadblock to actually building this fulfilling, peaceful, passionate relationship that you both want. And still, a lot of men who struggle with this fear of losing her, they see only one way to get out of this, which is to become the exact opposite. And so they become this domineering, egotistical man who might or might not sleep around with a bunch of women. This is exactly how someone turns into this kind of red pill man child that I often mention in my videos. That guy was probably once in a relationship and he was really afraid of losing that woman. And then he sabotaged and he lost the woman and he promised to himself that he would never let that happen again. And what's the easiest way to never get your heart broken again? It's to keep your heart closed. To not commit to one woman, to sleep around with a bunch of women, to never commit to anyone emotionally, and to not be collaborative and not be inclusive. I think it's very obvious that if you want a fulfilling, healthy relationship, it's not going to help you to adopt this kind of red pill mentality. And because there is no power imbalance or any bullshit like that in a healthy relationship. Yes, you have your differences, but those differences are very important because they likely attract you to each other. That's the polarity between the masculine and the feminine, right? And so me and my girl, we had to understand that instead of letting those differences drive us apart, we can actually use them to help us be better in life, right? We can use them, we can basically see ourselves like puzzle pieces that fit together perfectly, where we really basically fill each other's blind spots and each other's gaps. Anyway, the great thing is a good woman will do something that will not just help you see that she is a good woman, but it will also help you grow. The red pill man children call this shit testing, and they hate it, but it's not a test where if you fail, she will reject you or break up with you or some bullshit. No, it's a challenge that she gives to you from love for 2 reasons. Firstly, to feel your confidence, to feel that you trust yourself, because that helps her relax and helps her be who she wants to be. And secondly, because challenges help you grow. As the great David Deida already said, the masculine grows by challenge. And she wants you to grow, like we said earlier. And she will challenge you, especially when you start making the decisions that you want to make. She might act upset to try to get you off your path and to see that she cannot get you off your path. She might argue, she might shut down emotionally, whatever it might be. But the woman that you don't want in your life, the woman that's trying to control you or manipulate you, she would do the same thing, right? So how can you tell the difference? Well, it's actually very simple. Make the decisions you want to make while telling her that you're making those decisions because you love her. And that, of course, should be true as well, right? I'll give you an example. As I mentioned earlier, I had a time in my relationship where I was just working 80 hours a week. I wanted to do that, and she knew that. And so she challenged me on that, to see that she can not get me off my path, to see that she can trust me, that I trust myself, that I trust my own decisions, because that grows her trust in me. She asked me to spend a lot of time with her. She got upset when I didn't spend time with her, because her feminine side wants to see that I have the strength, the courage, the trust in myself to do what's right, instead of what she's asking of me, if those two options are not the same. And eventually I learned that the best way to handle this is to simply tell her the obvious truth, which is, I love you, I want to work right now, and I know that if I spend time with you right now instead of working, I will resent you. I will not like you. I will not enjoy that time. I will not be present. I will still be thinking about the work that I haven't done yet. And that time that we spend together will not be fulfilling for either of us. So I'll get my work done, and then we'll spend time together, fully present. Brother, I know this is scary. It was scary for me as well, but you have to do it scared. Prove to yourself that you can do the right thing despite feeling fear. Seneca already said, most powerful is he who has himself in his own power. This whole thing of working versus spending time with her is of course just one example, and you can apply this to everything. Just notice how I was living in my own power while still being collaborative. I wasn't doing this from fear or from ego or to punish her. I was doing this out of love for myself and for her. And when I did that, she still, of course, sometimes argued. She still got upset sometimes to really, again, challenge my decision. But what matters is not what she does in the moment where you make the decision. What matters is how she feels and how she acts and how she loves you afterwards. And when I basically did my work and then spent time with her, she was always very happy and open and loving. And that's what you should look for. That's what a good woman will do, versus a woman who only tries to manipulate and control you. She will not be happy afterwards. A good woman will be. Essentially, when you set these healthy boundaries with the right woman, she will be happier, she will be more fulfilled. Your relationship will grow closer and more connected and more peaceful. And with the wrong woman, she will just get upset more and more and more. And trust me, you don't want to spend your life with someone by your side who doesn't root for you. And this leads me to lesson number 7, which is by far the most important lesson in this entire video, because I always keep the most important lessons to the end of these videos, so only guys like you who are actually fully committed to building a great relationship, to working on themselves, to healing those past wounds. Only guys like you get these lessons, not those dorks who watch 1 minute of this video and then go on some Mr. Beast video or some entertainment bullshit, some entertainment slop. You've locked in, you get the reward. Very simple. Like we've already said, you and her have the same goal. You both want a deeply fulfilling relationship, and your fear of losing her is making that impossible. Now, we've talked a bunch about what you need to do, but she also needs to do her part in this. And you need to be the one who leads her into doing that, because likely she doesn't know this right now. So what is her part, and how can you lead her into doing that? Well, there's your part, and I will recap this for a second because it is important to understand what her part is. Your part is to make the right decisions despite feeling fear. And what that will do for you is it will create what attachment researchers call disconfirming experiences. Experiences that, in this case, disconfirm your belief that a good woman will leave you when you're not using fear as a protection mechanism. And her part is meeting your needs in a way that also creates disconfirming experiences. So in that case, experiences, for example, that show you that she cares about you and that she wants you by your side, that she will not leave you. Part of this will start to happen naturally when you start to trust yourself more and you start to make your decisions more from self-trust instead of fear, because when you trust yourself more, she can also trust you more, and then she will open to you more emotionally, sexually, in all of those ways. And those things, when she opens to you sexually or opens up about something emotional, that in itself will show you that she cares about you. And she does this because, well, she trusts you, and that trust will basically help her to feel safe enough to do this with you. Simple. But even beyond that, she can also make you feel more secure by doing small things that show you that she cares about you and that she chooses you and that you matter to her. I'll give you an example. When me and my girl were on long distance early on in the relationship, like around a third of our relationship was spent on long distance, and that is till this day, like not all at once, but like all spread out because of work, because of traveling, all that stuff, right? And the first couple times we did that, my fear just spiked up really heavily, and I felt very insecure in the relationship, very unsafe in that sense, right? And so I asked her whether she could call me a couple times a day. That was a random idea that we tried, right? And this was really powerful for me because she did that, and her taking the initiative to call me a couple times a day really made me feel like, wow, she cares about me. She wants this, she chooses this, right? This helped me grow a lot more secure, to the point where after a couple times of her doing that, she didn't even have to do it anymore. I felt secure enough. And what's crazy is that my phone is on airplane mode 95% of the day because I'm working and because I don't want to be disturbed. And so I didn't even see her calls. I saw only later that she had called me, because it wasn't about speaking with her. It was about seeing that she cares enough about this relationship and about me to take the initiative to call me a couple times a day. And that is such a simple, small thing that she did, right? But it had a massive impact. But here's where this gets tricky. She didn't know that I wanted that. So I had to ask her for this. And that was difficult for me for two reasons. Firstly, because I just wasn't used to asking someone to meet my needs. I had never done that. But the second reason is actually way more important, because I couldn't just ask her for things like this. That would only scratch the surface. I had to tell her why this matters to me so much. I had to tell her about my fear of losing her. And that was very scary, because society told me my entire life that showing vulnerability and talking about your fears as a man will only get you rejected, basically. But I did this anyway, and that's me leading her into this, like I mentioned earlier. And when I did that, it changed everything for the positive, because not only was she way more understanding than I could have ever imagined, but she even asked me what she could do to support me better here. So here are 3 things that helped me actually share this fear with her without ruining our relationship or making her lose attraction. The first one was to simply realize that she knew me well enough by then to sense that something was off. Feminine intuition is very strong. And while she didn't know exactly what was going on and what I was afraid of, she had told me that she often felt like I wasn't being fully present, or that I was making decisions that I really didn't want to make. And me realizing, okay, she kind of knows this already, that took a lot of pressure off of me. The second thing that helped me was to answer a very simple question for myself. Who is stronger? The man who is scared of losing his woman and never shares that with her, or the man who is afraid of losing his woman and shares that with her out of love, and with that actually overcomes this fear of losing her and actually builds the relationship that they both want. The moment I asked myself this question, I realized that I had been trying to play a role. I had been trying to be this hero, pretending that I'm perfect, pretending that I'm strong, simply to protect myself, because I was afraid of what would happen if I show that weak spot. She already knew about that weak spot. Right? Everyone in my life knew about that weak spot, simply put. Like, people, we are so good at sensing when someone is acting from fear. You know this yourself. And the simple truth is, man, when people realize this, that someone is acting from this fear, they can sense that weakness, and their trust for that person will diminish very quickly. And the third thing that helped me to talk about this fear with her and ask her to meet my needs was to really deeply reflect on the worst case scenario, on the worst thing that could happen. Because I realized then that if I share this fear with her and I ask her to meet my needs and she leaves me because of that, well, then I wouldn't have become happy with her anyway, because she's probably just not a good person for me. She's probably just not a good fit for me. And that would have still hurt, sure, but only short term. Because long term, I would have seen like I kind of dodged a bullet here. But actually, that's not the worst thing that could happen. The worst thing that could happen is that you continue playing this role, and you therefore spend a big part of your life in a relationship that will simply not make you happy, and that will also simply not make her happy. You would rob yourself of the opportunity to create a fulfilling relationship, and you would rob her of the opportunity to create a fulfilling relationship. And when I realized that, I promised to myself that I will never let it get to that point. And brother, I hope you do the same. And if this fear of losing her is not the only thing you're struggling with in your relationship, and you want to make sure that you build more skills and more competencies that will help you actually build a great relationship, then you can go watch my step-by-step guide for building a fulfilling relationship. I spent weeks working on this because I wanted this free video to be better than other people's paid courses. So you can go watch that right now, and I'll speak to you soon. Have a great day.